Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We thank you guys for taking the time out of your Sunday morning to join us for this media relations workshop. As we know, right now we're under like this climate where we feel like Muslims are under attack, both in the corporate media, Fox News especially. Then we have this election cycle. We have mostly Republicans trying to get elected on our backs, and they've done this for a number of years. And honestly, in this country, I don't think there's ever been a time prior to now where we can say that it may be difficult to to actually express La ilaha illallah without feeling this pressure on us. So how do we address that? How do we respond to the messaging out there? How do we, thank you, take what's there, not be a victim, but be able to actively and passionately respond back to represent who we are as Muslims? And to do that, alhamdulillah, the masjid here, MCMC, the CDC Community Development Committee has decided they want to give us the tools to train us and go out there and be a little more proactive. And as intro, we're inviting Brother Jim Seuss, the current executive director of the New Jersey chapter of CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, to come in and give us a workshop, give us some pointers. As we all know, CARE is the largest, America's largest Muslim advocacy group, and we all support them. And this is just one way of CARE now supporting us in a different manner. So, Brother Jim, if you step up and you start the program, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Inshallah, today I'll go through a PowerPoint that will touch on the subjects of becoming a media watchdog, okay, which is something that's actually important to do in the local level, and then spend a lot more time on becoming a media resource, okay, which is a little bit more involved. I know that there's a lot of discussion. You've probably heard discussions about people when they get in front of media, be it a newspaper, a reporter, or a radio show, or on TV, they talk about developing your talking points. You want to develop your talking points about whatever the subject is before you actually get in front of a reporter. So after the presentation, we're going to have an interactive workshop on talking points, okay? We're going to talk about two topics, and I'm telling you in advance so you have some time to think about it before we get to that point, okay? So the first topic will be, Chris Christie has said that he would not allow Syrian refugees into the state of New Jersey, not even a 5-year-old orphan. What do you have to say to that? Think about that, okay? Second one, Donald Trump has said that he would like to ban all Muslims from entering the United States for a period of time. He said that, right? What do you have to say about that? Probably about half an hour, we'll get to the, we'll come back and see if anyone has any good ideas. Okay, so inshallah, and then after the interactive workshop on those talking points, I'll show a few video clips of some news stories that I was involved in, so I can give you the background of what happened, what actually happened before what actually happened, what you saw on TV, just to kind of get a feel for what it's like behind the scenes with some of this stuff. And by the way, at any point, if you have a question, this should be an interactive session. So anyone that has a question, any point along the way, go ahead and ask that. So, any questions so far? Okay. So, a little bit about CARE. Yes, we're the nation's largest Muslim civil rights advocacy organization. We are focused on enhancing the understanding of Islam, promoting justice, and empowering American Muslims. And we consider this workshop as part of the Empowering American Muslims, empowering you to enhance the understanding of Islam to the media, local media, and whoever you would come in contact with. So first we'll talk a little bit about what it's entailed in the area of becoming a media watchdog, and then what is entailed in the area of becoming a media resource. To become a watchdog, you want to ensure fair and balanced coverage in your local media. You don't necessarily want to get involved in national media. Our CARE National Office and other national organizations get involved in that. But you want to keep an eye on your local media, which would be local TV, radio, newspapers. It's probably best to form a committee, not just sort of go off and do this on your own. It's not a bad idea to do it off on your own. If you want to read the papers and respond with letters to the editors and those kinds of things. But if you form a committee, like Concerned Muslims of New Jersey or Concerned Muslims of Middlesex County, you'll have a little bit more credibility when you want to respond. So the key point is to stay informed. Stay informed in terms of local and national issues impacting the community and how those things are being reported in the various news outlets. It's a good idea to pick a coordinator, a single person who maybe would speak for that committee. And it's not a bad idea to give that coordinator a legitimizing title like executive director or primary coordinator or something like that. So when you do, after you've done your monitoring of the media and you're on respond back, then the person responding back is not just a man on the street, but it is for instance, an NIA media coordinator or something like that for Middlesex County. And by the way, this person should be someone who's naturally interested in the news. If someone thinks it's laborious to track news and monitor news outlets, that's not the right person. It's someone who's naturally always reading the news, on top of it, seems to know what's going on in the news. That's the kind of person you want to pick, someone who's naturally there already. You also want to create a database of gatekeepers, people for the newspapers and outlets you're interested in. Who are the city metro editors? Who's the religion reporter? Who's the news director? And then you just go and assign people in your committee to monitor the local media. You look for, and that's, again, the newspapers. You decide, as a committee, you decide which outlets you're going to monitor. Before we started the seminar, we talked a little bit about the fact that New Jersey 101.5 is a New Jersey outlet, and some of the talk shows they have, some of the callers that call in have decidedly unbalanced views of Muslims. And it's not a bad thing, for instance, to say as a committee, let's figure out a way to make sure that someone is always listening to and recording New Jersey 101.5 just to see exactly what they're doing. You look for factual errors, unbalanced coverage, okay? Omitted information, like they said this, but gee, they forgot to say this, so it's kind of implying a bias. And then you document your findings, okay? And then ways of responding to unfair or unbalanced coverage or inaccurate. One way is if you've documented findings over a period of time that show that a particular outlet has a documentable bias, then you can ask to meet with the editorial board and you establish a thesis and say that, okay, your reporting is biased against Muslims, and then here's the documented evidence that I have to support that. And they'll take interest because most media outlets don't want to be accused of being biased. You collect supporting data, you determine criteria like specific words that are used, placement and emphasis, like everything that's anti-Muslim is on the front page, anything that's pro-Muslim is back on page 6. That's what you mean by placement. And then make sure that everything's fair and balanced. And again, you present your findings. Other things to do, short of meeting with the editorial board, would be letters to the editor. Letters to the editor are a good way of responding to unfair, unbalanced reporting. It's a well-read section. Typically, they're under 200 words, so you want to keep it pretty concise. I know the Star Ledger has a limit of 200 words, for example. Some papers will publish letters up to 250 words. You want to be sure to express just one idea. You take one idea, say that the story you ran yesterday about this particular incident was not factual, only covered half the story, or one side, something like that, and then you expand on that in this 200 words. It's good to refer to a specific article, speak on behalf of this committee, okay? When you sign the letter, it's, whoever it is, whatever coordinator of such and such a committee of Middlesex County. Of course, you can do it as an individual, but speaking on behalf of an organization that seems to represent the Muslims of Middlesex County, give it a little bit more credibility. You want to avoid rhetoric and defamation, and if you think it's an important letter, you can send copies of the letter to other outlets and even politicians and other masajid and other people. Any questions? I think that's what I had on becoming, yeah.
Yes.
Watchdog.
How to put it? Well, you suggested that it's a good idea to have like a committee or organization dealing with this. Now, should Muslims on the whole, generally, individually, or in small groups, even masajid-wise, right, establish such committees and deal each one of them individually, either as an individual or as a community, maybe MCMC community or so. Then you have Mashar Wali community and MC&J Forge and so on. Each one of them doing the same task, like you know what you've outlined there.
Right.
Or should it all be coordinated and maybe come under a major body like CARE or so?
Well, okay, CARE does monitor the media to some degree, but we monitor it for the whole state. And some things get biased. And for instance, right now, we don't necessarily have someone who is listening to 101.5 all the time and recording it. It's not a bad idea to have very localized committee, especially to address very localized things that happen. For instance, lately, there have been cases of bullying in schools, okay, that have made it up to statewide media and even national media. So if something were to happen in a school in Middlesex County, the news outlets would be looking for the most local, close to that school resource. So, for instance, if something happens up in Bergen County, sometimes people will contact us, but more often than not, they say, "Can you give me someone in Bergen County to talk to about that Bergen County school?" So there are, some case of police brutality or things like that are very local, and they will look for a local resource. And it's also, as far as the newspaper, they're concerned with their readers, and their readers are local. So a statewide organization that says, "We object to the way you covered that story," they'll say, "Well, where are you located?" And you're some statewide organization. I'm not sure that my local readers are necessarily have a problem with this. But if you're actually saying, "No, we're the Muslims of Middlesex County and we object to that," and you're this Middlesex County, then that's their readership that objects to this, and that carries more weight. So it does make sense to have local committees. Now, if you set something up and you find that there's interest in some neighboring masajid in having some input into this, then I'd say, yeah, go ahead with something like that, as long as it's logistically manageable. I mean, obviously, this is something where you want to be able to have people that can get in touch with each other on a short notice basis and come up with some good ideas. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we'll talk about becoming a media resource. Again, things things do happen locally, and often, of course, the news media outlets want to talk to the people that are affected and get that story out. And as Muslims, there's a lot that's going on that does affect us. So they will be looking for comments from local Muslims. So you want to provide the local Muslim point of view to various news outlets. So now, if you want to be proactive and get your story out there, if they didn't come to you, you would want to know who the gatekeepers are for the various media outlets. So in television, that would be a news assignment editor, a public service director, or a talk show news producer. If you want to say, I've got a thesis, I've got something that I want to discuss on TV, you can go ahead and contact one of these people and actually present to them, and then they may or may not react and put something together. In print, it's the city metro editor, photo editor, religion editor, feature editor. These are people that you can get. For instance, something you want to be proactive about would be an Eid celebration or an interfaith event. We're going to have a big interfaith event at MCMC. It's going to have all these different people and politicians, and we think it might be something for you to want to cover. And so these are the people you'll be contacting to have. So if you want to have some media coverage. At NIA, for instance, there were Day of Dignity events where low-income people were provided with assistance. There was the Back to School event where low-income people were provided with school supplies. This is not a bad thing to invite local press to have them cover it, have pictures of Muslims doing good things in the community. That's not a bad idea at all. So that's something where you can be proactive about, contact them and have them come and cover. Radio would be a news director, a public service director, or a talk show producer. Okay, So these are 9 things. It was funny when I put this thing together, it actually said 7 things, but I went through and I counted, there were 9. So we got to be truth in advertising. So there's 9 things, tips for working with the media. Always be truthful and accurate. The last thing any reporter wants to do is put something out there that later on turns out to be not true, because it reflects on them. And if you gave them that information, they would never come back to you. You burn that. You always have to, of course, be truthful and accurate. It's good to be available at all times. I'll talk about some situations where I was in some very inconvenient situations, and a reporter called and said, we want to go live with an interview in 20 minutes. And can you be on Skype? And I said, no. And he said, is there a picture of you on the internet? Yes. Well, where is it? Oh, I see it. I can use this. Okay, can we do it on the phone? Okay, good. 15 minutes, we'll call you back. And by the way, that was live on Press TV. The guy was calling me from Tehran. I'll get back to that. You also want to represent all segments of the community opinions, especially if you're speaking if you've got a committee and you're calling yourself the media watchdog of Muslims in Middlesex County or something like that. Make sure that you're speaking for that entire community. Act quickly. When things happen, news outlets want to be on top of things right away. So if there is a case of police brutality, or there's an egregious case of bullying in one of the local schools that makes makes the news, they're going to want to get an opinion or some kind of reaction from the community or whatever very quickly. So you need to respond. A legitimizing title. Again, we talked about this. This by virtue of the fact that I can say I'm the executive director of the New Jersey chapter of CARE, that's a legitimizing title. The other brother that works in our office is the communications director of CARE. So these are legitimizing titles. So it's not just any old person that's up there talking. There are, of course, cases where, in the case of covering a story, the news reporters will just want to talk to the average person, or the MOS, or the man on the street. And that doesn't require a legitimizing title, and that's sort of a whole different kind of a random person. What do you think about this issue, kind of a thing. And again, you piggyback on larger stories. That's in case you want to be proactive and say, I have a story for you, Mr. Reporter, and this is how it actually fits into this larger story that's being talked about. Think about visuals. Again, if you're going to have the media come to you, and if it's an event, a back-to-school event where you're giving out school supplies to underprivileged children, there's some great pictures there, okay, that either TV or newspapers could use. And if you're having a press conference, a nice backdrop, a lot of people standing up, and how's this going to look for the visual media outlets? When you're writing a press release, there is a specific style, okay, and there's a book. The AP style book. If you're going to be writing press releases on a semi-regular basis, it wouldn't be a bad idea to get a hold of this book and understand what the AP style is. And just become a news resource. Becomes the person that they come to when there's something to talk about when it comes to Muslims in Middlesex County, or even Muslims in New Jersey. Okay. So blunders to avoid. Failing to respond. If you get a call from the New York Times, and you miss the call and you pick up the voice, but call them right back. Even if, frankly, you're not sure, about this topic, you do want to call them back. Of course, it's best to have talking points in mind about the topic, assuming that they did tell you what they wanted to talk to you about. Of course, don't become hostile or threatening. You don't want to use too much rhetoric. You want to just kind of stick to facts and how this affects the community and this is happening, kind of a thing. You don't want to try to overtly manipulate the coverage like a lot of people do. Of course, again, don't provide inaccurate information. You do want to praise balanced coverage. When you do get a good article in a paper, you do want to email that or write there, call that reporter back and say, thank you, I like the article, that's the way we like to see it presented. Now, if you have an e-newsletter, and you ever have the habit of distributing links to articles in that newsletter. If you tell the reporter, I like the article, thanks for the coverage, etc., I'm including a link to that article in our e-newsletter. They will like that because they'll get more hits. What a reporter wants is hits to their article on the, because all these newspapers have a web presence. So when you tell them you're essentially advertising their article to your constituents, they'll get more hits. That'll look good to their editors, et cetera. So that's exactly what they want. That's a good way to form a good relationship with a reporter. And then you need to understand how the media works, which is what this workshop is all about. Okay. When you work with reporters, they will expect you to do their work, so let them. You do their work. They'll ask you, so how many Muslims are there in the state of New Jersey? You could say, I have no idea. Or you could say, you know what, I'm not sure, but I think I know where to find that, and I'll get back to you. They'll like that, because then you're doing their work for them. So, and by the way, that number, I've heard anywhere from 300,000 to 700,000, and the national number, I've heard anywhere from 3 million to 7 million. So, and
So which one do we choose?
yeah, I know.
We have to
You
give
can
a
see,
number.
you can give them the range.
Somewhere in the middle.
The number I feel confident about is I'm pretty confident there are about 110 mosques. And if you say masajid or masjid, they wouldn't know what you're talking about.
Yes.
So 110 mosques in New Jersey. And by the way, there's also about 1,000 churches, so whatever that does. But you might want to go, with the conservative number of 300,000 Muslims in New Jersey. They'll do very little primary research. So whatever knowledge you can bring, facts you can bring to the engagement is helpful. They are under extreme deadline pressure. So you say, I'll get back to you with a number. You don't want to say, I'll get back to you in 3 hours. I'll get back to you in about 10 minutes. Because they are just, one time I was at a conference with a reporter they have a pretty good relationship with at one of the newspapers up north. And the conference was over, and she was writing a story. And I just had a few more things I wanted. I was getting kind of chatty, and she was looking at me like, "Do you see what I'm doing?" I'm like, "Okay, go ahead." They're under a lot of deadline pressure, and of course, they fear charges of inaccuracy. So the last thing you want to ever do is present inaccurate information that they might take forward, and then they'll have to live with that. So local media opportunities are, of course, community newspapers, cable access TV. FiOS 1 is for FiOS customers, a news station here in New Jersey, and New Jersey 12, I think, is the Comcast local New Jersey news. Now, New Jersey is kind of a strange media market because it's either New York or Pennsylvania, rather Philadelphia, as far as the NBC, ABC, and all that. This is the New York stations typically here? Oh, okay. So the New York local stations would cover this area, but they actually do work out of New York. And if you say, I've got a press conference and it's in Piscataway, New Jersey, they'll think that's a long drive. And literally, I've said, they've asked me, where's my office? I say South Plainfield. And they say, can you come up here to like Jersey City or something? Because they just don't want to drive all the way down to South Plainfield. And there's public radio and just, commercial radio and university media. We've gotten coverage for some things we've done in the Rutgers paper, and it reaches a fair number of people. Framing issues. One of the things about framing issues when it comes to Muslims in America is a good frame for issues would be framing it in terms of civil rights, human rights, and constitutionality, okay? You don't want to frame an issue in terms of like, well, he doesn't like Muslims, and that's why he's doing it, because you know what he's thinking and all that kind of thing. But, so you don't want to make it personal about a politician or reporter or something like that. You want to frame something in terms of civil rights, the Constitution, something big and positive that's important to people. Okay, some of the the do's and don'ts. Staging a news conference or a press conference. We've had a couple of those in New Jersey in the last several months. The best time is between 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. or 7 to 8:30, 2 to 6 p.m., and never between 4 and 5. Because most news outlets have this deadline at 5 p.m., so between 4 and 5, they're editing what they've collected during the earlier part of the day. So a press conference between 4 and 5 is just not going to work.
I think that's like, we had a press conference with Imam Asif, he and the Woodbridge Clergy Association and so on. We had it here after Jummah, which you said that's the worst time because it's 2 p.m.
Right. Did a lot of people show up?
And I think one, and it did. We did see it, in the news.
It got covered? Yeah.
It got some coverage, some amount, but maybe not as much as we would like.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been better to do something right at 10 a.m. And that's really the prime time, because then they've got, whatever they collect, they've got a good amount of time to figure out what they want to use, what they don't want to use, throw in some other stuff, put a nice package together. If you're talking about 1 p.m. or 2 p.m., it's like, okay, it's going to be crunch time, and we'll just have to whip something together real fast before 5 o'clock,
Is there a preferable day over another or no?
Well, weekdays.
Yeah, weekdays.
Yeah. Okay, a couple of points about a press conference, stuff to remember. You send a news release to media gatekeepers, and you would call this a media advisory. So you're advising them about something that's going to happen. And I've got a sample media advisory, I think on the next slide or the one after that, okay? Or somewhere in here. You prepare a media kit to distribute. A statement, in other words, what's the point of the press conference? We, the whatever, Muslims, whatever, MCMC, are condemning the acts of something or other unconditionally, and, a statement. Anything relevant or backgrounders, like previous press releases where we have said similar things that demonstrates that we really do feel this way, or whatever's relevant, and fact sheets. So here's a little package, and you hand that to any reporter that comes in. By the way, I'll go right to the bottom. You want to use a sign-in sheet and get the names, emails, phone numbers of all the reporters as they come in, and they'll expect that. And that way you can see who was there, and also follow who to track for coverage. Like, see, NBC was here, CBS wasn't, ABC wasn't, so let's watch NBC tonight, see what happens. And then you'll be able to respond if you don't like the way it was edited and the way it was couched. So you appoint an articulate, knowledgeable spokesperson to kick the whole thing off. You try to make sure the representatives from all groupings in the community have been invited. So a good press conference has a spokesperson and some people standing behind them that represent the community. You decide on your talking points, and again, we'll have that talking point interactive session later on. Select a suitable site. You want a good background. You want enough room for reporters. You want to build some visuals into the event if you can. I've seen people bring things like this or this that show charts, pie charts, something that's relevant to the point you're trying to make. After the media are set up, you introduce participants and give their organizational affiliations. So you want to make sure whatever organizations are represented there, make sure that all reporters know those organizations. And then anyone who does speak, of course, they give their name, their title, their organization, so the press can use their statements and have that information. Read a short statement. A short statement. Long rambling statements are almost useless. They can't use them. They want to see short and concise. And that's probably of the press conferences we've had lately, that's probably the biggest sort of misstep of a lot of people that have participated, is they just get up and start talking kind of like this long rambling stuff, and there's nothing that a newspaper or a TV show could actually use. Say a few words, 1 minute. You're not there to educate the reporters, okay? A lot of people tend to want to talk to the reporters and tell them that Islam is a peaceful religion in this long-winded thing, and they think that's the point. The point is not to to convince the reporters that Islam is a peaceful religion. The point is to give the reporters some material that they can take and put in the news, because this group of 20 people is not nearly as important as the 10,000 people that might read that newspaper. So you want to give them something. So if you've spoken to a group of reporters and nothing you said got reported in that newspaper, it doesn't really matter what you said to those 20 people. And then I said use a sign-in sheet. Okay, so here's a press conference that we held in Jersey City, actually the day after the San Bernardino attacks. Now we were there, so this is the people that were, this was at the one of the masjids in Jersey City.
Was it Al-Ghazali?
Ahmed Shadid's, yeah, I guess Al Ghazali. Yeah. This was, yeah, the school, I guess. The Masala was like 2 floors up. These are all the people that were presenting. Nadia Kaf, our board chairman, and Nahadawa, the executive director of Care National, was there. And then we had the mayor of Jersey City. And then and then these are all mostly imams from Jersey City. And then there were some other politicians from Jersey City and Patterson. And then this is a pretty good turnout for a press conference. This is all TV, newspaper reporters, and some radio. This is what I consider a very good turnout. Now, why do we get this good turnout?
Rotations, you have mayor.
No?
The San Bernardino thing?
Yeah. The press conference was called to talk about how Donald Trump's claim that there were thousands of people celebrating in Jersey City
Oh, yes.
didn't ever happen. And that's why the mayor of Jersey City was there. And so if that had just been our point, we probably would have had half that number of people. But it just so happened the San Bernardino shootings happened the night before. I'm not going to say good for us. Sucks for a lot. That was a good crowd. And of course, they all kind of sat there and listened to all these statements about there were not thousands of demonstrators in Jersey City. But of course, when we said, okay, anyone have any questions? What were the first questions? Okay. So, yeah. So there were, and by the way, of course, the people that were here from CARE and other organizations knew that there would be questions like that and were prepared. As a matter of fact, Nadia Kaf pretty much spoke on, when it was her turn to speak, she spoke about the press coverage and let's not, jump to conclusions about the shooters and that kind of thing. But I can't say it was fortunate, sorry, but you know what I'm saying. We got a good crowd because of the, I assume, who knows how many people would have showed up otherwise, but it was a pretty good turnout. So now we'll talk about writing a press release.
Before we go to that,
Yeah.
I have one question. A few slides prior, you said don't try to overtly manipulate the media. Do you have an example of that?
Well, yeah, there would be you, for instance, omitting information.
Okay.
Okay, and taking too far to one side of the story. You've got to sort of acknowledge that there is a whole story here. And okay. So a press release or a news release. Rule number 1: try to stuff with creativity. This is not an essay. This is not a creative writing project. This is going to be something kind of factual, and it's going to fit into that AP style. You follow set formulas, and I'll give you an example of 2 press releases. You've got media advisories, public service announcements, etc. Use the inverted pyramid in arranging the priority of information. I'll show you what that means. There's a headline, a lead sentence, who, what, where, when, and why. You need to be clear, concise, and active, and eliminate all unnecessary words. And this is something that takes practice, okay, to know what really are unnecessary words. Define any non-English terms. Don't use the word masjid. You would use the word mosque. You would use the word. You wouldn't even say Juma. You would say Friday prayers. These kinds of things. Put opinions in quotes. You rewrite, triple check, have other people read it. You end it with an end or some hashtags. Include useful contact information, and consider a press release distribution service. So what do you do with your press release? You can send it out to the names you've collected as far as who are your media gatekeepers, to newspapers, radios, whoever you want to send it to. Or there are services that for about $150 will just automatically distribute it to all the news outlets in New Jersey. So they'll give you one state for $150. And you just Google press release distribution New Jersey, and you'll see who does that. So if you haven't got a good database of press contacts, that's something you might want to consider if you really want to get this thing out there.
And will they give us a feedback of who they sent it to?
Yeah, before you pay, they'll tell you who they sent it. And really, it's virtually every newspaper, radio station, TV station in the state. Yeah.
Do you maintain the database for the local media outlets so we can use for MCMC as well?
Oh, do we? Yeah, we have. I mean, we maintain a database of people that we've had contact with. For instance, the Asbury Park Press, I've got 2 names that are, contacts and whatever. A press release service might actually just send it to the editor of the paper. I've got reporters' names. I don't necessarily have, editors' names. So, depending on what you wanted to do, as far as if it was really something you really wanted to dedicate to the print media or televised media, or you wanted to send to everybody, you might go different routes. Okay. So this is the 80, 90, 95. So the headline is 80% of the story. You should be able to read the headline and know what's going on. Not even be so inclusive that people would not even necessarily have to read the rest of it. But then you want to put down below who, where, what is going on, a sub-headline that's 90% of the story. Expand on the headline, write a lead sentence, expand on the headline and subhead, incorporate language of the headline into the subhead, explain more about the issue, and then provide a quote, okay? And I'll show you an example of exactly this in a press release that we did recently. There's only 3 ways to begin. The Council on American Islamic Relations New Jersey chapter today said, we don't agree with this, or a Muslim organization, a Muslim news watchdog organization in Middlesex County today said this. That's number 2. Or on this date, this organization will have a press conference, or this organization will have a interfaith outreach event, or this organization will have a back-to-school giveaway, whatever it is. So that's about it as far as how you want to do a press release. So here's this top line. CARE New Jersey calls for a probe into deaths of Shia Muslims in Nigeria. Okay? That's the headline. And that's pretty much tells it, right? Beyond that, now it's just a matter of more detail. So this is the date line. I'm saying South Plainfield, New Jersey, on this date. It's all, that's the way we started. The New Jersey chapter of the Council of American Islamic Relations today joined the U.S. State Department, there's credibility there, right, in calling on the government of Nigeria to conduct a credible and transparent investigation into a large number of deaths in recent clashes between the military and Shia Muslim group. So this is just an expansion of this, a little more information, okay? Then there's a little more expansion of that, because we talked about, the American Embassy in Nigeria, which goes back to the State Department, and expanding on that, said in a statement, the United States is deeply concerned about reports of the clashes, yada, yada, yada. While many, and then this is a quote from the United States State Department, while many details of the incidents reported on that remain unclear, we're just made to learn, and all this other stuff. This is a State Department quote. Representatives of the group say that up to 1,000 of its members were killed by the military. And then this is my quote, okay, if the initial reports are any indication of what actually occurred, those responsible, no matter what their official position, need to be investigated, and anyone who broke the law needs to be brought to justice, said CARE New Jersey Executive Director James Seuss. We condemn unequivocally the acts of this sectarian violence as all those who have committed in Zaria. And then CARE is the largest organization. So you usually end, okay, so this is CARE New Jersey calls for, and then you usually end with the quote from CARE New Jersey that's the specifics of the call, right? And then this is just this expands on that, that expands on that, that expands on that. Then there's more detail, and then the quote, and then something about who it is who's saying all this, which is CARE New Jersey. This is, go ahead, I'll send you the file, and you can just use this as your template for how a press release happens. And then the media advisory is announcing a press conference. Were there any questions on that? On this?
So this would be sent to.
We sent that to everybody. As a matter of fact,
the gatekeepers.
yeah, our list. I mean, we just have like our list. Mostly, we sent this more to reporters than to editors and all that.
Okay.
Okay. And frankly, I'm not aware of anyone that carried this. Okay. But we just wanted to go on the record that we did it. And of course, we sent this out to our email, our e-newsletter. We put it on our Facebook page, and we put it on our website. Okay. But yeah, you would send this to whoever your media contacts list is. Yeah. And then this is a media advisory, okay, to announce a press conference, okay? And this is CARE, New Jersey Muslims Respond to Paris Terror Attacks. So I'm basically saying this is what the press conference is going to be. It's going to be a response to the Paris attacks. Then again, South Plainfield, New Jersey, with the date on Tuesday, whatever, the United States will join other Muslim organizations at a news conference to condemn Friday's terror attacks in Paris and other recent similar attacks in Turkey, Lebanon, and other areas of the world. What? We condemn the Paris attacks. When? That time, 11 a.m., right? Between 10 and when? Right, 11 a.m., it's a good time. Rutgers University, they give the address so they can find it. If you have any questions, contact me with my email and my phone number, and then a statement, a little more detail than beyond just the word condemn. On Friday, CARE's National Office issued a statement in response to the Paris attacks of Redmond Park. We condemn these horrific crimes in the strongest terms possible. Our thoughts and prayers with the loved ones of those killed and injured in the Illinois. And then there is a link to a URL that's a little bit more detail on that. And then again, we end with who is CARE. It's where the America's largest, whatever. So this is how you would announce a press conference. Okay. So, writing an editorial. They're powerful framing vehicle. It's an opinion. You should check with editors on newspaper editorial to get editorial submission policy as far as, you know, the length, who they'll accept it from. If you're actually someone with a legitimizing title that's speaking for a large organization, that helps a lot. You want to keep it short, under 800 words. Stick to one issue. You don't want to confuse things and try and say, okay, this is my chance. Let me talk about all these 3 things that have been bothering me. You want to keep it on one issue. You want to make the opening line a zinger, something that's going to cause people to want to read the rest of it. Okay. You want to pitch it as exclusive. I mean, if you're talking to an editor of a newspaper, you're saying I'm only giving it to you. I'm not going to send this out to every newspaper in the Northeast. You state the conclusion first and then summarize at the end with a call to action. So the conclusion is your thesis, and then you're supporting it with more information. You should be expressing a unique opinion and then base it on facts and first information. You don't skip on facts. If there's any facts that lend themselves to your thesis, then you want to bring those out. And you include a brief bio and contact information. Okay, who is it that's saying this? And so if you're the chairman of the something or other, media watchdog, but you have an interesting, a degree from somewhere and studied in Egypt and grew up in Guyana and, whatever it might be interesting, to add a little more color to whoever's writing this, that's helpful. And then letter to the editor. Typically one of the best read sections of any newspaper. It's a quick and easy way to respond to negative coverage. I mean, so you can read an article, something's not right about that article, you have a specific thing to say about that, a quick letter to the editor to respond. If it's, again, a letter to the editor that's in response to their particular article, is more likely to be published than a letter that's sort of about a general news event that's happening. You want to react to negative coverage or a negative editorial, provide a different angle on the news of the day, offer a viewpoint from a particular segment of the local community. So, we at Middlesex County Muslims feel this way about it. To increase your chance of publication, under 200 words, react quickly. If the article appeared today and you write their letter to the editor today, that would be the best. Of course, they won't publish it for maybe a week or so, but it'll get out there. Be authoritative, speak on behalf of an organization. One main thought, and resist the temptation to include other points, and you can be passionate and controversial, but avoid rhetoric and defamation. You don't want to say Trump is just a big whatever. You want to try and be factual about, the kinds of things that he's saying. So, what to do when you get the interview? Okay, it's your turn. There's print interviews, often over the phone, and be careful about what you say. I've had a couple of occasions where, there's something going on, where you're talking to a reporter and they're getting very chatty and chummy and very friendly, and they get you to say something that you think is, well, you know, you almost want to use the word, this is off the record, but what really happens is this. And then it turns out that's the quote they use in the article. You said all these great things that you could just imagine how this article is going to look. And then the one thing that you were kind of, you know, iffy about, you know, that's what they use. So you have to be careful about what you say. Saying less is better, but you don't want to, you want to give them something that they can use. Radio, it can be in the studio, on location, or, you know, and it can be, you know, in the studio, or they call you and do a phone interview, and it can be live or taped in either situation. The thing about live is you're going to feel a little more pressure to respond and say the right thing, but it won't be edited. When it's taped, they'll edit it, and they can leave things out that were your best points, and, you know, kind of manipulate it to maybe not paint as positive a picture as you would have thought they could have been painted. And TV can be on location, it can be taped, it can be edited, it can be live, it can be a camera with a live feed, or it can be Skype. And I'll give some examples of some of this stuff. And then it can also be in the studio, live or taped. In the studio live, for example, some of these morning shows, most of the networks have like Good Morning America and that kind of stuff, and someone just comes in, and that's live at 7 a.m. in the morning, and there's no editing or whatever. You want to practice beforehand. You don't want to just kind of go in there without having thought about what the issues are, the questions that might come up, and what you want to say. It's not even a bad idea to, well, I mean, one way of practicing would be to watch the news and then watch someone being interviewed, and when the reporter asks a question, pause the TV and think, what would you say to that question? And then see what the other guy said. It was kind of, you know, literally practice. Can't stop it?
Figuring it out.
Okay. So,
No, it's not that speaker, it's way.
It's these speakers. All the speakers.
well, anyway, so if you're scheduled for an interview, one of the most important things you want to do is check the latest news. Because if something just happened, you'll be asked about it. So, and I'll give an example about how this played into one of these press conferences. You want to write down the headline before the interview, like what would be your point? What's the point you want to get across? Very good, it's fixed. You want to write down, or at least think of, likely questions. What do you think this person's going to say? And you can get ideas of likely questions from watching other news shows, or just imagining, yeah, what are people talking about? And you want to determine your talking points. And these are the things, the ideas that you want to get across. And you'll have these talking points in your back pocket, not literally, but, you know, in the back of your mind. And so when questions come up that are sort of in the area of that talking point, that can be your answer. Practicing with someone if you have the time. If you can't tell a joke, don't try to tell a joke. Don't try humor. If you don't have experience of people responding positively to your humor all the time, leave that out. Okay. Some more things to remember. You are in control of the interview. They're asking the questions, but your answers will determine where that interview goes. You want to begin and end with your talking points. You can also ask that a question be restated. That can give you time to think of something to say, and also they may say it in a different way and give it a slightly different color, maybe give you more ideas. You can give your if it's not live, you can give your answer a second time. And I've done that before. I've kind of flubbed an answer, and I just say, wait a minute, and then I'll say it again where I'm kind of speaking clearly. And again, as long as it's not live, they'll edit it, and they're fine with that. When you finish your answer, stop talking. Some people just think, they say something, and they don't like the idea of just silence, so they'll just keep rambling on. It's like if you say something and you're rambling that, is something more interesting than your real talking point, they might use that. So, you want to take control of the interview, we talked about that. So you want to agree to the angle before the interview. Typically before the interview, you'll talk to, if it's a TV interview or radio, if it's a radio, you'll probably talk to the radio host. Or if you do a call-in, If it's someone has a radio show that has a call-in, some producer will answer the phone and say, "Who are you and what do you want to say?" And you'll say, "I'm so-and-so, I represent this committee of Muslims in Middlesex County, and I know you're talking about this, and this is what I want to say, this is what I feel about it," and they'll decide whether or not to put you on the air. I've gotten, for TV, talk shows, interviews, you get a producer will call you up and say, "Would you want to be on this talk show talking about this topic?" You can ask them like, well, what kind of questions they're going to ask, or what's the angle on the topic, and you can have a discussion with the producer before, so you get a good idea about how this thing is going to go. You can also definitely get an idea about whether they're going to be friendly to your point of view. Okay, not always. I mean, they could sound friendly up front, and it might get less than friendly later on. So you want to provide background on the issue to the journalist, and the journalist could be a producer. You never want to say no comment. It looks like you're hiding something. There are other ways to sort of evade a question that you don't want to get into, like with deflecting statements. Let's look at the issue from a broader perspective. There's an equally important concern. Let's not lose sight of the underlying problem. These are ways to deflect without just saying no comment. Okay. So here's where you would write down your talking points. Possible sound bites. Sound bites would actually be, real quotes, words that you would want to say, and I'll give you. We'll get some examples of those. And common sense anecdotes relating to the subject. We'll get into that too when we get into the talking points interactive session. Any questions so far about that? Okay. Talk shows, which is essentially, you're sitting down, you've got an interviewer or two, or there's two of you and one interviewer, or one-on-one. They can be taped or live. If you look good, they look good. Okay, so if you look good and you're articulate and you've addressed the issue, they look good. They got a good person to be on. They want to kind of make you look good to make their show look good. So things people look for, producers look for in guests, you're punctual, you don't want to be late. Early is much better. Articulate, authoritative, you've got some information to bring to this subject. Your ability to translate complex topics into a digestible form. Okay, that's what people say about like sound bites. You can take a complex topic and reduce it to like 5 words that get the point across. That's a good thing. Steps, this is for any booking. This is proactive. This is if you're trying to sell your interview to them. You would pitch them, and you would do a follow-up, and you would do a pre-interview over the phone, maybe even a confirming letter. I mean, I've never actually gone out and tried to get on a talk show. I've always, so far, just responded to requests. Can you be on this show? And I'll show you the examples at the end. So on-air etiquette. You don't want to be wishy-washy. I mean, if they ask a direct question, they really need a direct answer. You want to use the interviewer's first name, like, "Yes, Bob, I understand," though I never can remember the guy's name once the thing started, so I've never done that. And you never want to challenge the interviewer by like questioning his knowledge. You don't want to say, "Well, you don't really know anything about what's going on in the Middle East," whatever. You just, you want to do it lightly. If they've said something that's not correct, you want to really, be sure that you're very tactful with the way you deal with that. You don't want to read responses, especially on TV. You could read responses. If it's a telephone interview, for radio or telephone for TV, you could definitely read. But you don't want to sound like that. You learn to take cues, okay? An interviewer can give you facial expressions to tell you whether you're treading into the wrong area or whatever. Keep an eye on the interviewer and the cameraman for that matter, and see if you can take cues as far as how they're reacting to your answers. And remember that all mics are hot all the time, so you want to be careful what you say at all times. And it says don't look at the camera or the monitor, but I was in one situation where they actually told me to look into the camera, and it was actually uncomfortable. So here's a little bit about what to wear. Medium tones, you don't want to wear stripes. You don't want to wear the kinds of glasses that turn into dark glasses when they get the light in them, because they'll become dark glasses with the light. You don't want to wear a hat. Unless, if you're actually coming on as an imam, you would wear a thobe and a kufi, and that would be sort of part of what they would expect. But if you're you don't want to wear a baseball cap or something like that. Stripes and checks, glasses turn into sunglasses, pull down the back of your coat when sitting down, unbutton your suit jacket. These are just little tips. So, any questions?
Maybe it's for the Q&A, but.
This is the Q&A.
Oh, this is,
Yeah.
I've often wondered how much do they manipulate the people they select? I mean, the selection process, because it often looks as if, oh, if only we had a better representative, or
Right.
do they actually manipulate, do they?
Well, yeah, I
Not
mean,
to- Yes.
I mean, yeah, a producer, I mean, a producer or a reporter is essentially going to, based on the news of the day, going to come up with an angle, like, what's the story we want to tell, and then they'll look for people that will be able to speak to that story. So, and by the way, again, like I said before, they're doing it on very short notice. And they're just like, they may call you, if they go to your voicemail, they'll just call someone else. I mean, if the story they want to tell is, we're on heightened security, the terror alert is, high, and we should all be afraid, then they'll find someone from Homeland Security or something that's going to say all that. If the story they want to tell is that there's a backlash against American Muslims because of things Donald Trump has said, they'll look for American Muslims that have something to say about that. They probably spend much more time talking about how the terror alert is high, but we take those opportunities when they do want to talk about backlash against American Muslims, and we try and get the right people to talk about that. Anything else?
I think the preparation process is very important, but very often I think that like we are unprepared for these situations, and then somebody calls and asks if we're willing to do an interview or so, and then we're not prepared. So, how do we get over that kind of situation? I know we are, yes, we have to be always looking at the news or so, right? Following the news, and then but more than just following the news, forming opinions on it. Right, and having in your mind exactly what you want to say about it, and so on. And
We're gonna do that right now.
yes, it's not an easy process.
I know.
think.
Okay, so right now, we're gonna have an interactive workshop on developing talking points on 2 issues. Remember what I started out with? Who can tell me what the issues were, or one of them?
Donald Trump said some more stuff about us.
Like, do you remember what it was he said?
No, to ban all Muslims.
But
Donald Trump said that he would ban all Muslims from entering the country, and then what was the other one?
Christie said that he will not allow Muslims, not even a child.
Syrian refugees. Syrian refugees. Okay, so now what we'll do is, if you could be the scribe, we'll come up with talking points for that. By the way, if you'd like to get CARE's email, CARE National has an email distribution list, and a lot of people subscribe to that. CARE New Jersey has our own email, and the reason I put this up here is because here's what our email looks like. So if you don't get this with that orange thing across the top, this is the local New Jersey email, and you would like to, go ahead and sign this. Do you have a pen that you could?
Yeah.
Sign? So, yeah, close that. Yeah, just drop it all, yeah, might as well just close it all the way out.
Yeah, that was for MCMC. Yeah.
Okay, and then, Word, yeah, I guess you have to go to here. Right here. Okay, so, anyone have any ideas? Like, I'm a reporter from NJ12, okay? And you have this committee, you've issued a press release, so I have your name, you're the contact, because all that contact information is on every press release that goes out. And I call you and say, Chris Christie just said that he's not going to allow any Syrian refugees into the state of New Jersey. What do you have to say about that? So anyone got any ideas?
We already have a refugee in Elizabeth, New Jersey.
Right,
The family, so-
but starting now, he's not going to allow it. Nobody?
Well, he should learn. I mean, I'll give you example for Canada. Recently, they have an election, and the prime minister over there, Stephen Harper, he was acting like Donald Trump,
Okay.
and he learned from his campaign. And just in Toronto and surrounding area, the Muslim turnout for the vote was more than 80%.
Okay,
And they saw the results turned out to be totally different.
okay,
And as opposed to the new guy, what he's doing, he's really welcoming the refugees. So if he does the same thing, then maybe next election comes, he might not have support. And not only the Muslim supporter, but even the local Canadian supporter as well.
okay, so what's the talking point there? In like one
He's
sentence?
making a mistake.
Well, no, there was more than that, there was more
Yeah.
specific than that than what you
Yeah.
just said.
Misconception?
No, he's gonna alienate the Muslim vote, or he's gonna lose the Muslim
He's gonna lose
vote.
the Muslim support. Or maybe local or non-Muslim as well, maybe.
Okay, so he's gonna lose the Muslim support, you know, he's gonna lose the Muslim vote,
More, yeah.
okay?
Uh,
He is going to lose the Muslim vote, less than 10 words, which is definitely what you wanna do.
This is contrary to American values.
Contrary to American values. That's good. I mean, it's concise,
Yeah.
and it's a good point.
He's conflating security with the refugee crisis, and they're not related. So, like, he's connecting two different things that aren't, like, in his mind, he's thinking that the refugees are coming in and it's gonna be a threat to security, and so it's conflating like two non-issues.
Okay,
So I don't know how to make that more concise.
okay,
Are there any
but-
statistics to back up
Yeah.
his opposition?
yeah, well, let's take one at a time, okay? So, what you're saying is, the refugees are not really a security threat. All right, so you can start with that. And then you're saying, are there any statistics that can back that up? Okay, so can anyone think of anything that you could say to back up the claim that the refugees are not a security threat?
Yeah, I mean, they're fleeing what we think is the security threat. Like, that's what they're getting away from.
So they're the victims,
Yes,
Yeah.
so the refugees are the victims, not the perpetrators,
exactly.
okay? Anything else?
They go through one of the most rigorous processes of, like,
Right.
background checks.
Right, okay, so seeking asylum as a refugee is the hardest way to get into the United States and takes how long?
2
Up to 18 months to 2 years, up to 2 years. That's a very, it's on my list of, I actually have a list of the talking points that we should try to cover. Now, a sub-point to that is, if you wanted to do harm to the United States, and you want to come to this country to do harm with them, and what would be an easier way?
Student visa.
What?
Student visa.
A student visa. How about a tourist visa?
Tourist
Yeah,
visa.
A tourist visa,
Yeah.
you can get in about 10 minutes. To come in as a refugee is going to take a minimum of 18 months. These are facts to support, you know.
We can raise more question like, are they going to just prohibit only the Syrian refugee, or are they going to refugee from all over the world?
Right, right. Well, he said Syrian refugees.
Yeah.
So,
He said Syrian refugees.
We could
But-
use the data of how many refugees already exist and, you know, the percentage of those who have committed any.
Okay. And that would have been a great argument a week ago, but you know, just recently
Yeah, yeah.
they picked up two guys.
Yeah.
So, and that also dovetails into, you want to stay on top of the news and be aware that there were two people in Houston, California that were, so you want to be careful. I mean, now it's a little bit harder to make all these arguments than it was a week ago, okay?
There's something new in California.
Yes.
Yeah, someone in Dallas and someone in California apparently were in contact, and then they were in contact with someone, I don't know, something,
Oh my goodness.
it's not as if there was some terrorist attack that had been planned, but there was some discussion about getting weapons and training.
Mm.
Okay. And did you get the brother's point there?
Which one?
What was that?
they're going to block all.
Oh, right. Would it expand to all refugees?
Or is it specific to Syrian Muslims or whatever?
Right. Anything else? All right, let me see what I had.
How long does he propose to do that?
Yeah.
We should not ask that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the reporter couldn't, you know, to ask, let's avoid asking questions and let's stay with making statements, because the reporter won't be able to ask, you know, and asking questions are kind of rhetorical questions. So it's kind of like, that's on that bullet of sort of being overly rhetorical.
That he doesn't even have like the justification or like the authority.
Authority.
Yeah, the jurisdiction, like to be making.
As a governor, he doesn't have the authority to.
Yeah.
Now, what he did say in his letter to Obama was that, okay, when refugees do come to the state of New Jersey, they have available to them certain social services that are provided by the state. And he was saying that he was going to not make, so he couldn't keep the refugees from coming here, but he was going to not make these social services available to Syrian refugees. And that again just makes him look less,
Yeah.
what?
Human.
Human? Compassionate? Okay, so his statement demonstrates a lack of compassion. That would have been a good one.
Yeah.
That's on my list.
Yeah,
Okay, so the press conference in Rutgers was to condemn the attacks of Paris. Okay, a lot of people were there, and the night before that press conference, Chris Christie had his radio interview where he said he would not allow Syrian refugees, and not even the host said, how about a 5-year-old orphan? He said, not even a 5-year-old orphan. Okay, that happened the night before. Because I follow my own rules, I checked the news before coming to the press conference. I heard he said that. I knew that someone was going to ask that question, even though we're talking about condemning Paris attacks. So we get to the press conference, and there's all these imams and leaders and all that at Rutgers, lined up. Dr. Ali Chowdhury actually set this press conference up and did a very good job. And everyone made these statements, and the first question to come from a reporter came from N.J. Burkett of WABC, and he said, well, Chris Christie said this, what do you have to say about that? And everyone down the line was like deer in the headlights. No one had even heard that this statement had been made. And so I said, here, give me the mic. And so I knew the question would be asked. I had developed my talking points, which were, I just said it's reprehensible. So let's make no question about the fact that I just completely disagree with this thing, reprehensible. Then I said it demonstrates a total lack of compassion, okay? Because compassion is something that people want to see in elected officials. And it's one thing to be overly concerned about security, but you need to balance that with compassion. And then I made the point that someone made, that the refugees are victims of ISIS, okay? And then they shouldn't have to pay for the sins of ISIS. So these were these three talking points I came up with on the way. So I said that, and then I'll show you the way it turned out, the way the report turned out. This was a press conference that went on for 90 minutes, and then you'll see what actually got played out. And that, by the way, was the only comment I made about during the whole thing. But let's see if there's anything else.
Due to time, maybe we should move to the
other one.
similar press conferences, because it's almost 12:20.
Okay, well, really quickly, Donald Trump proposes ban on Muslims entering the U.S.
It's against American values. I mean, we have never blocked any particular community or people. We have welcomed all people from all over the world.
Okay,
So,
I guess American values, very good.
Against Constitution?
Unconstitutional. Is it logistically possible?
no,
Does your passport say what your religion is?
no.
Could you identify someone's religion?
How does he know that who is Muslim or not Muslim?
Exactly.
Actually,
It's logistically impossible.
That's-
Would it really curb gun violence in America? I mean, of the mass shootings that happened in 2015, and there were something like over 300, and 2 of them involved Muslims. Okay, so you'd be impacting 2 of the 300. Why would he make such a statement?
I think he's playing on people's fears and creating,
For his election campaign, basically, he
fodder,
just want to win the votes.
Scoring political points.
For his point. Yes.
Scoring political points. Okay. And then, what do you think of Trump's poll numbers? This is a follow-on question that you should anticipate. So what do you think of his poll numbers?
They go high.
When he says these things, they go higher. How does that make you feel as a Muslim living in the United States? What?
Frustrated.
Frustrated?
Dislike him.
fearful.
Fearful?
Fearful.
Isn't it frightening?
Yeah.
I mean, now, Trump says we should ban all Muslims from the United States, and his poll numbers go up. There's a big segment of American society that's basically saying we wish they'd all leave. Okay. These are good. And these are the things that I had come up with because I had actually been asked these questions, and then we can show some quick clips
Yeah, maybe like
of
two.
some stuff that had happened. I'll say yes.
Wonderful.
Okay. I wanted to give some examples, but here's okay. So here's this Rutgers press conference that was. You'll see there are a number of speakers. There are a number of news outlets, including WABC. And I had done my homework in the sense that I was aware of the fact that Christie had made this comment. And
Thank you. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie today joining the bandwagon of mostly Republican governors saying they will refuse to accept Syrian refugees. Governors actually have no legal say in this matter, but nearly 30 governors are now opposed. This as the Muslim community in the U.S. braces for greater scrutiny and fears of a backlash. Eyewitness News reporter NJ Burkett is in Monmouth Junction, New Jersey tonight with much more. NJ.
That's right, Liz. The Islamic Society of Central Jersey, where the imam says it's bound to happen. Increased surveillance and monitoring. And the growing controversy over Syrian refugees is fueling fears of a backlash against Muslim Americans.
Worshippers say it's inevitable. Increased surveillance of Muslims throughout the...
Now, by the way, the way this happened was, again, after the press conference, people kind of milling around. And so reporters will grab someone who they heard them say something or something like that and try and do like just an off to the side, you and me kind of thing. And they grabbed someone who was a representative who was actually on the board of ISCJ. And they said, well, could we go there now? And they said, yes. So this was all just a sort of a splitter off of the press conference, which happens a lot.
The area.
I'm a man that deal with reality.
Some clerics, like Mustafa El-Amin,
he was at the press
say
conference.
The carnage in Paris was so horrific, the implications so disturbing, that American Muslims should expect increased monitoring, if not welcome it.
The Muslim community is trying to do all that it can, but we most certainly need help from law enforcement.
But there are those who disagree.
Simple statement.
They have no reason to watch the Muslims unless they have probable cause.
At a news conference to condemn the attacks, local Muslim leaders say there are serious concerns about a backlash against their community. Atiya Aftab works with students at Rutgers University.
The students who I work with on campus are certainly concerned that they could be victims of surveillance.
Some say an anti-Muslim impact is already being felt, with nearly half the nation's governors ready to turn their backs on Syrian refugees. Among the latest, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
I don't think orphans under 5 should be admitted into the United States at this point. I do not trust this administration to effectively vet the people who are proposed to be coming in order to protect the safety and security of the American people.
Critics say that's outrageous.
We find those comments reprehensible. I mean, it just demonstrates the lack of compassion on the part of our governor for even a 5-year-old orphan.
Okay, so this press conference went on for 90 minutes. You saw all those people up there by the podium. They all spoke for greater than 2 minutes, and you saw how the title of the story wasn't even New Jersey Muslims condemn Paris attacks. It was the whole angle on the refugees and the thing that the governor had said. I mean, it really, so it's, you want to be very concise and to the point as far as how, what you do in a press conference. And then this, by the way, was kind of interesting in that this was a news report where they called me up and said, would you like to do an interview with whoever that is? I forget her name. Who?
Mary Alice?
I think so. And I'd done interviews in the office before, and we have this CARE poster, you know, up on the wall so we can stand in front of it and all that kind of thing. And they said, it's not going to be live, but we're going to shoot it like it's live. And so they had me sit at my desk, and they put one of those earbuds in my ear, and they had the camera right in front of me. They said, look into the camera, and then she was asking questions through the earbud in my ear. It's unnerving because it's not a physical situation you're used to. First of all, hearing the person through your ear, and second of all, just staring at a camera that has a bright light right above it that's shining right in your face. So you'll see I'm looking away from the camera and doing all that because I didn't, you know, I'd never been in this particular environment before. But at the end of the day, it worked out, I guess, well enough. But I just want to show, it's just
Joining us is the executive director of the New Jersey chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, Jim Seuss. Thank you for joining us. Your initial reaction to Trump's statements calling for the ban on Muslims entering this country.
I'd have to agree with Governor Christie on this one.
Now, they edited a little bit out of there because she said something about Christie.
It's offensive, and it's frankly probably very illegal.
Donald Trump has said a lot of controversial things. Might these most recent comments be a tipping point of sorts where he'll start dropping in the polls?
Yeah, I would hope so. Right now, I'm not necessarily optimistic. I'm very interested in seeing what the polling data will show will be the reaction to this. Trump has proven himself to be rather adept at abusing Muslims in the media and capitalizing on that in terms of political points.
How does the political climate surrounding the San Bernardino?
You know, you get the idea. It was a difficult environment that I couldn't see her. I was supposed to look into the camera and all that. But this, that interview actually led to a pretty good interview. I mean, someone, Steve Adubato, right? His people called because they saw that interview, and then I got on the Steve Adubato show, which was him and someone else. So I had two interviewers. It was actually a Y-shaped table where you sit at one end, and there's an interviewer over here and one over here, and they pepper questions. They go back and forth. It's like tag team, and they interrupt you as you're trying to answer. But back at the Jersey City press conference, there was an interview out on the steps. Again, a lot of these people show up for this press conference, and then they'll try to grab people and take them off to the side and do little one-on-ones just to, you know, get some more possible usable footage. And so I had gone out to the front steps with CNN and did what I thought was a pretty good interview. I had some good points. And then I was, you know, monitored CNN after that to see how they covered this press conference, and, you know, I didn't get on. So I was like, oh, that's too bad. I said all the good stuff. Well, then weeks later, the day before the CNN-sponsored GOP debate, Erin Burnett out front, she did a little package about, you know, the whole Muslim issue, and then it reminded me that, yeah, once they have these little sound bites, they have them forever, and they can use them whenever they want. So this is a couple weeks later.
The growing number of assaults targeting the Muslim community, now the worst since 9/11. Some are blaming escalating anti-Muslim rhetoric, including that from Donald Trump. Jason Earl is out front.
American Muslims are becoming increasingly concerned about being targeted because of their faith. In the past few days, 3 mosques vandalized in California, one set on fire, a 23-year-old under arrest. In Philadelphia, a severed pig's head thrown at a mosque. And then there was this attack on Soccer Hawk.
I'm standing and he just like a minute or less, you know, then he turned and he punched me.
Hawk owns a convenience store in Queens, New York. He says last Saturday, a man attacked him because he is Muslim.
He said, I kill Muslim. And then...
Wait, I'm sorry. He said, I kill
Muslim.
Is that how you got the black eye?
This is he punching.
Oh, so he punched you.
Then he punched me, I don't know how many times. I said, help, you know.
This man, who did not want to be identified for his safety, heard those cries for help.
But the guy who was just angry, he just wanted to keep hitting them and keep hitting them until the cops came.
Hawk believes Donald Trump, who is from Queens, is partly responsible. Muslim leaders say Trump's recent plan to temporarily ban Muslims from the United States is part of a continued effort to demonize their faith.
This rhetoric echoes the policies enacted by Nazi Germany against the Jews. Trump's and Carson's mainstream
mayor of Jersey City,
Islamophobia
and
in the
then
election
that's our communications
is
director.
inciting real discrimination, real hate crimes.
So that was the Jersey City press
Awad
conference.
called out not only Trump and GOP
But that was from
candidate
2
Ben
weeks prior to
Carson
this little
for
report
his
here.
claim of Muslims should not be president, but also New Jersey Governor and GOP candidate Chris Christie.
I think many Muslims in New Jersey feel a sense of betrayal for what Governor Christie has done.
Why betrayal? Many New Jersey Muslims thought Christie was an ally, but now disappointment over this comment from Christie about Syrian refugees.
I don't think orphans under 5 are being, should be admitted into the United States.
In the Republican primary campaign, Muslim bashing seems to be the red meat that the candidates are throwing to some of their supporters.
As for Trump,
Now, that was a talking point that I thought up on the car on the way to Jersey City, in case I ever got a chance to talk to you, but I thought about 3 or 4 points I'd like to make. So during that interview, I got to make all these points, and then they actually use that one, and they use it, and like I said, it's been a couple weeks later, and they may grab that little sound bite and plop it in, whenever they think that it kind of makes a
He's on
point.
his way to speak to the district attorney, hoping his attacker gets the...
Anyway, then I know we're going to close up in a second. There's just one more. Is anyone familiar with Press TV? It's the Iranian state TV. It's out of Tehran. They do have an English broadcast, and they have a website. It's a good source for news if you want a source that's not going to be in the back pocket of the United States government. Far from it. They're going to give the other side. It's like Russia Today, RT.com. It's a good source for news for, it's kind of an unfriendly view, so you kind of get the other side. Same thing with Press TV. So they had, seen, I guess, some of these reports, and they had, someone in Care National had said something about one of Donald Trump's comments creating a state of fascism. He mentioned it with the word fascism. So I was driving home from my office in South Plainfield down Route 1. I live in Pennsylvania, just north of Philadelphia. And I got a call on my cell phone. I don't normally answer the phone in the car, but I thought, well, let me see what this is, because it was a weird number. And it was, so-and-so from Press TV speaking to you from Tehran. And we'd like to interview you in about 20 minutes live. Can you get hooked up to Skype? And I said, look, I'm on the highway. The next 20 minutes I'll just be out in the on the road somewhere. No, I don't need a way of getting connected to Skype. So he said, is there a picture of you on the internet? And I said, well, yeah, on our website. And he goes, hold on a sec. Where's that? And he's clicking on it. He goes, oh, I see it. Okay, I can use this. Okay, so we'll do it over the phone. I said, okay. So we'll call you in 15 minutes. So I'm driving down Route 1, and it's about 15 minutes. I said, I better pull over. So I pull into this gas station, and there's a little mini mart, right? I parked in front of the mini mart, and the phone rings. And the guy goes, okay, the show's underway, and the hostess will speak to you in about 2 minutes. So you'll hear, just dead air till then. But then when she asks you a question, answer the question. So that's where this interview came about. So I was very curious. Oh, then I called my communications director, told him I'm going to be on Press TV live. Could you record it? Just so we have it. So he said, sure. Yeah. And then I found out the reason was that in the past they had edited our interviews to make it look like CARE is anti-American, okay? And so my excuse was, well, this was live, so there was no editing. So, but anyway, we don't do Press TV.
A U.S. Republican presidential hopeful Donald Trump has called for a complete ban on the entry of Muslims to the country.
Of course, I can't see any of this.
A quote, total and complete shutdown
I
of
was
all
wondering what it
Muslims
all
entering
looked
the
like.
United States should be put in place. Trump added that his proposal is in response to what he called hatred of Muslims towards Americans, which could cause more attacks. Trump's statement drew quick reactions, with an official from the Council of American Islamic Relations saying, quote, quote, "We're now entering the realm of the fascist." White House also called Trump's remarks contrary to U.S. values and national security interests. Trump's rival Ben Carson said everyone entering the United States should be monitored, but rejected being selective of one's religion.
Then this is his dead space, I'm not sure why.
Let's speak to James Suez. He's the executive director of CARE's New Jersey chapter, and he joins us on the line from New Jersey. Many thanks for joining us here on Press TV. Now, I'd like to get your initial reactions to Trump's comments, specifically when he when he spoke of hatred of Muslims towards Americans. Has he forgotten that there are Muslims who happen to be Americans as well?
Apparently, yeah. These comments are very offensive.
So that's the picture that's on the CARE National website.
Fanning the flames of bigotry for political points, and unfortunately, it works for him in some segments of society.
Well, speaking of the comment that your organization made that we're now entering the realm of fascism when it comes to Donald Trump, how serious are his comments in the sense of dividing the country, specifically at a time when Islamophobia is rising?
Yeah, it does serve to divide the country. Thank God, just because Donald Trump says it doesn't going to happen. As a matter of fact, it's very unlikely that something like that ever would happen in this country. Besides being inflammatory and offensive, it's illegal. But the fact that his poll numbers may possibly rise as a result of a comment like this shines a light on the division that is in the country, and it's very unfortunate. And he is encouraging this kind of thing, and that's even more unfortunate.
So what is the solution over here? We have organizations like CARE, etc., that come out, condemn, try to create bridges between the American Muslims as well as the rest of the larger community. But is that enough?
Yeah, frankly, it's not enough. Today
Yeah, I think you get the
it's a
idea.
matter of some...
As I was sitting in the parking lot of this, there was like a stop and go or something, a little mini mart. I was trying to anticipate the questions that would come up, and none of the questions that I thought of she asked. She completely, was coming out of left field with everything she came up with. So, okay, I guess we're getting close to. You gonna wrap up? Yeah. Okay. Good. So, any final questions before we just wrap it up? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Jim, and CARE New Jersey and CARE National for obviously doing the work that you do, representing, American Muslims in, various levels of media and government. So this was a pretty intense, I think, a lot of information, and everyone's ready to go out there and write editorials and, do press conferences. Raise your hand. Everyone's ready? Of course not. There's a lot of information that, Brother Jim gave us, and what we have to do is, some of the initial steps that Jim had said, start a committee and whatnot. MCMC and the CDC has already kind of started laying some of the groundwork with the vision of how to get to the points he's mentioned maybe in this 5th or 6th slide. And, all of you stepping up here today, taking time to come and learn about this information, I hope everyone, signed the sheet that Matt passed around. We will, follow up with the recording of this, and Jim, if you submit this, send us this PowerPoint, we'll be sending you the PowerPoint as well. And we'll be basically keeping in contact with all of you as, going next step forward, how to get more involved, and, basically we'll take these ideas and see them to its end, and we'll, we'll start having different, more workshops to take some of these ideas and dive more in depth and, increase our skills and learn more about those things. And to that end, I'm going to invite Matt up right now to, right before he closes the session, to just tell us the next step and the next workshop. Thank you very much.
So I'm Matthew. I'm head of the outreach department. I was working with Maz, who's big in CDC, and he pretty much covered everything I was gonna say. The next step really is to take all these concepts that we learned here. There's a lot of information that we went over. Next step is to review that information, and next workshop will be to actually implement it, see what we can actually do, see if we can sort of workshop our ideas and see if we can get sort of these ideas out there, like writing editorials, see what we can do. So yeah. So I will keep in touch with all of you about getting all these PowerPoints and all this good information out to you and about the next event. So thank you for coming out. There are cookies and tea in the back, so feel free to talk and chat and drink. Thank you.
One thing I